Greetings, gamers, and welcome to Season 5, Episode 9 of Ropi Gamma, the Gamers Podcast. I am your GM, Byron, and joining us once again is my co-host, Howard.
Greetings.
Welcome back, dude.
Thank you. Sorry about last time. I really hope. I mean, the internet's been perfect all this time, but guaranteed, as soon as we actually start business, it's going to screw up on us.
Yep, and you and I have been talking actually for the last hour beforehand, so watch.
No problem.
Go and watch. We're going to have them now.
Yep.
Almost guaranteed. So yeah, actually, after telling you what, because you had left right before my talking point last week.
Yeah, and I'm again to everyone out there, I'm really sorry. Just my internet just went bloop, and it was over.
That's okay. I mean, as much as Puff, Puff and I was able to handle things and to wrap things up. Although she did have a very good point. You do bring a little something special to the podcast, and you were missed, as she had stated.
Thank you.
So, but I remember telling you what my talking point was after the fact, and you were like, "Oh, I really wish I had been there. I would have had stuff to say," and I really had wanted you to be there because, like I was actually saying, it was something that was affecting you indirectly, and affecting Puff and I rather directly.
Yeah.
So I actually wanted to give you the chance to go ahead and let you talk about it some before we got into anything else.
Yeah.
Since you were, thanks to tech issues, you were robbed of the chance last time.
So depression and gamers. I'm dealing with it in my own games quite a bit. I've had it happen a number of times recently. As a matter of fact, very recently, I've sort of started losing players due to it. It's life, man. Life. The biggest impediment to gaming is life. I hate to say it. Job, school, money, family, health, all these things can be a serious drain. And when life turns nasty, when it starts getting you down, you start losing passion. And it has a direct effect on gaming. Game's supposed to be our escape. That's kind of why we do it. It's our way of breaking out of our own lives and living fantastical adventures in other realms. But when people start getting sad and depressed, start losing that drive, it begins to affect everything, and it usually starts really targeting the things we love the most first, which is one of the reasons why depression is so sadistic. And when people begin to lose the focus in gaming, lose the passion for it, the love of it, and it becomes a chore. And I've seen it happen recently. And I've like I said, I'm losing players to it. And in the past, I myself have burned out at least once. I know you know about burnout.
Yeah, I've burned out a couple of times actually.
Yeah. So it's kind of sad because I've always seen gaming as a way of getting away from all the stresses of life. But what happens when gaming is the stressor? What happens when you just don't have the energy to get up and go to the game? Or as a GM, what happens if all of a sudden you've got too much going on in your own life? You don't have the energy to put together to put together a game and to bring the energy to the table. And then your players suffer. I don't know. You would think that gaming would be the cure, but more than not, it isn't, and oftentimes it becomes part of the problem.
Well, actually, part of what Puff and I talked about was actually how gaming can help when you have depression. And actually, I brought up one way of because actually, some people have turned gaming into a form of self-help.
Yes.
I posted a link to this last week. It's actually something I use myself. I'm not right at the moment because I'm waiting till after Gen Con because of all that craziness. But there's actually a site, and they also have an app called Habit RPG, which kind of helps you turn your life into an RPG almost to kind of help you develop better habits and deal with stuff. But unfortunately, you are right too. Oftentimes, when depression hits, it does hit those things that would make us feel better to begin with, and unfortunately gaming can't. The other side of the coin is gaming can actually be a cause of it too, as much as I hate to say it.
It's kind of it's self-flagellation. You get depressed, and incidentally, for the viewers at home, I've actually I actually had clinical depression at one point in my life, full on clinical depression. I used to enjoy one of my few. I'll never forget this. one of my few enjoyments during that period of my life was watching the depression commercials, like the commercials that was the list, the whole list of things that says if you have any of these, you may be suffering from depression. And I used to, in actually few moments of joy, were watching them and listing all the ones I had. The only one on there was I don't drink, because drinking and depression are often tied closely. And since I die if I drink, that was the only thing. But I had everything else on the list. I was clinically depressed. And I remember that phase, not fondly, but I remember it. So I understand depression, clinical depression, not
Mhm.
just being sad. I'm talking about depression. The
Yeah,
problem
and
is
then that was a distinction that Puff and I made last week too. Was we're not talking about just everyone's got their down moments. We're talking actual mental illness,
yeah,
depression, because unfortunately a lot of people don't understand. I mean, a lot of people don't understand a lot of mental illnesses to begin with, but depression is one of those that everyone thinks they know, but they don't, because
yes.
the word gets used. It's like, oh, I'm feeling depressed. There's a difference between feeling depressed and being depressed.
Well, it's nomenclature. No one ever says, "Well, I feel a little schizophrenic today." I mean, you know
Yeah.
what I mean. I feel a little agoraphobic today. That's not something used commonly. People always are saying, "Well, I feel a little depressed today." So it's we're at a war with words, and in that case, people use depressed interchangeably from feeling like being blue or having a little sadness versus being clinically depressed. It's a gulf of a difference. Having experienced both in my own life, I can attest that if you're depressed, it's a serious thing. But what I was going
Yeah.
to say is the whole self-flagellation thing. You depressive people who are clinically depressed feel bad about themselves. They feel bad about everything, but particularly about themselves. Oftentimes, they're not good enough. They're not successful enough. They're not happy enough, which is a funny thing about depression. Um, and so you go to a game and you feel depressed, so you don't perform as well in the game, and that just makes you feel sadder because you went to the game to feel better and you didn't feel better, so that makes you more depressed. And it can become, and it's not just gaming, it's all things, they become self-fulfilling.
Yeah.
However, the nice thing about gaming is, you know support networks are one of the good ways of getting out of depression. I mean, I know what got me out of mine, and it was a support network. It was one individual, actually, in particular, a guy named Brian Frankham, saved my life, actually. Um, and gaming can provide that. That's one of those things. It can. So it can help people out of depression. It can be a cure. It can be a support network. So long as it is done well, in the sense that people understand what's going on. You kind of have to accept and understand that the person you're dealing with is depressed first.
Yeah.
And that's can be difficult. That
Yeah.
can be really difficult. Because what happens when a guy comes to your game, and every game he's just dragging, he's not participating, he's just sort of phoning it in, and you're, as a GM, getting frustrated. What do? You may not know that guy has depression, and it's
Yeah.
possible. So when you're interacting with him, it's one of those things as a GM and other players. It's like you're always sort of walking this fine line and be like, is this guy just moody or is he actually depressed? If he's just moody, maybe you handle it one way. But if he's clinically depressed and you do the wrong or say the wrong thing, you can turn him off completely.
Yeah.
And we're not medical professionals, and so it can be a dangerous thing in this sense. Speaking
Yeah.
from a psychologist, remember, everyone, I'm a psychologist. So
Yeah. Actually, he does have a master's.
in psychology. Now, my master's is in IO psychology, business psychology, but that doesn't mean I didn't do the depression courses.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is there's a lot of moving parts to this. The first part is it can be a very significant burden to throw on a gaming group. Think about it. Gaming groups, as we've discussed, are cantankerous, very persnickety organization to begin with. You got a lot of competing personalities, a lot of competing desires, and any amount of stress, the wrong stress, can fracture them. Okay, you add in a depressive person, and we as a gaming group want to help this person out. None of us are clinical psychologists. None of us have training in this. Some of us may not even be aware that the person is depressed. Maybe only one person's aware they're actually clinically depressed. Maybe they've been sworn to silence. Because this is true. Sometimes depressive people, if someone does find out, they just don't want that person to tell the people because they're actually embarrassed about being depressed.
Yeah.
It's another thing about what depression does. It makes you feel so bad about yourself. You don't want other people to know how bad you feel about yourself because you're
Well,
supposed to be happy all the time.
yeah, well, and also some people will take it as feeling weak, and a lot of people
Yes,
don't want to feel weak, and they see as depression or any mental illness admitting to it as being weak,
it's
and
weak.
it's not.
And that is 100% true. But you've got when you're looking from the viewpoint of a game, you've got a lot of people to consider, a lot of parts. You've got the person themselves. Are they coming to this game as a lifeline, or are they coming to this game because they feel they have to? Commitment. Two different things. If they're coming because they feel they have to, it actually can cause the depression to get worse because as when you're in clinical depression, you know the way you're supposed to feel. You just can't feel that way anymore. You simply just no longer feel happy. Oh, it's not happiness. You no longer feel. You know your mood is depressed, but you don't know why. Oftentimes, and you blame yourself. There's a lot of self blame. There's no self-flagellation. On the other hand, if they're coming for a lifeline, what's your responsibility as a GM? Do you yourself take on the responsibility to help this person out of their depression, having no skills yourself in that no skill set, no previous experience, no training in this? Or do you try to convince them to go to someone who does have the skill set specifically necessary for this? But if you do that, will you
Well,
lose them? Wait, will you lose them as a gamer? And will they turn away from you because, again, depressive people often don't want to ask for help?
yeah, and actually, and Puff and I did talk a little bit about this last week as well. But basically, what we had said was, because well, like you said, oftentimes some people won't even know they are depressed.
Yes.
And actually, what we actually said was, ask your gaming group because I mean, granted, some people, they're friends with their gaming group outside of game, and sometimes you have people that like, they're their gaming group, and that's all that they don't know much about them outside of that. But still, when it comes to gaming, you get a feel for people, especially the GM. You get a feel for people, and so we actually said, it was like, if you're questioning it at all, you know, at ask your gaming group and just be like, hey, you know, I need to talk to you guys about something real quick. Reach. That was one of the things that basically Puff and I were just like, if you're even, thinking that you might be depressed, you probably are because your instincts are
Yeah.
probably telling you something's not right. And you're kind of thinking like, I wonder if that's the case. Usually, if you're wondering about it, it probably is right, or at least something is wrong. Um, and I actually said, I was like, reach out to your gaming group if it's basically just like, look, I think something might be wrong, you know. And we even actually offered for anyone to reach out to us too. But my advice to most gaming groups is also, if you think someone is depressed and they come to you and they're like, I think something is wrong, or I think I am depressed, pretty much the first words out of your mouth should be, they should be seeking, help.
Yes.
But Puff and I also know from experience that just having someone to listen can be
Yes.
drastically helpful too. So, to be courteous, to listen to your group, to listen to your friends, and then tell them to seek help because again, we're not professionals.
I would say that the game group should be the first line of defense, because they know you well enough to know your moods. If you've been gaming with a particular group long enough, yeah, you're good like family. And there are people who understand you. They know your history. They know what you like, what you don't like, and they're a good sounding board. They're also probably going to be better, more receptive to it, and more willing to help you out. But what I want to stress here, and this is the problem, is, and again, you do, if you have someone, if you yourself are feeling depressed and you think this might be the case, or you're depressed, because heck, at a certain point I knew I was depressed. There's just nothing I could do about it.
I can raise my hand and say I am right now. I'm actually on meds about it. So
So you go to your gaming group, and that's great, and it's nice to have a social network, a comfort zone. But I would suggest for those people, and also for gaming groups, to try to find somebody, a professional. Now, it's perfectly acceptable to be like, I really don't feel like doing this, and having one of the gaming group. Like, I would honestly offer to go with a friend of mine who is suffering to the counselor with them. I'll go
oh
with
heck
you,
yeah.
man. I mean, heck, go as a group. Like, I mean, figure out, do whatever you can to help your friends,
Now, now,
but
granted,
don't.
most counselors will probably be okay with that. Most like psychiatrists or psychologists, it may be the group is waiting in the waiting room, not going with,
And that's fine.
but still,
Moral
that
support.
there is that support, that show of yeah, we're here for you.
What I want to make clear, though, is that, and here's the problem. This is the thing. Me being a psychologist, and this is what I always get into, because I work with troubled youth. I have my entire life, or well, most of my adult life. Okay, I've worked with depressive people. I've worked with some pretty crazy people, which I know is not a clinical term, but there it is. Be
It gets
careful though.
it gets the point across.
Be careful though. Dealing with depression, someone with depression, it can be very draining on the person who's dealing with it. That's why it requires a certain set of skills. And depression can suck more than one person in. It's like
Yeah,
someone who has an addiction. There's a difference between helping and enabling. And for a gaming group, what I said to begin with is it can put a lot of stress on a gaming group, especially if every game becomes a counseling session. So what you're talking about is an extremely fine line, and this is why depression is so, so, so horrible. Is the effect it can have not just on the person but the people around them.
yeah,
It's like drowning. That's what depression feels like. It's like drowning. Someone throws out a
or,
lifeline. Someone
or
throws out
smothering.
or smothered. But I like the drowning metaphor because so you're drowning. So I reach out to grab you, and in doing so, I slip and I'm being pulled in after you. And this can actually happen. And so this is what I'm saying with a gaming group is being the first line of defense, not the last line of defense. In
Yeah,
that it can be a great way of getting the person to realize they are having these feelings, realize that they are having a clinical issue. It's not just they're not just feeling bad. I'm not just tired. I'm not just sad. I'm not just bummed out. I'm not just stressed. I'm actually depressed, and the group can help them realize that. And then the group can be a great support network to get them to a professional, a counselor, psychologist, psychiatrist if they require medication. Because some people do, some people don't. It depends on the type of brain chemistry going on.
yeah.
So gaming can really, really, really be a good social network, a good support network to get the person where they need to go to get the help they need. If a gaming group becomes the end-all, be-all, and it works, great. But you're dealing with a mental illness. And dealing with a mental illness without training is like dealing with a bomb without training. You might clip the right wire. 9 times out of 10, it's gonna blow up in your face. And this is what I'm trying to caution people with a gaming group is
Yeah.
just because you're a social network of friends doesn't mean you're trained professionals to deal with mental illness.
Well,
I'm saying this from personal experience.
yeah, and I'm gonna tack onto that a bit in the terms of you also have to be careful. I mean, if you know, if you're pretty much solid that a person in your group is depressed, but they're not coming to you about it, but you're feeling concerned that you know if you're feeling you want to go to them about it, you got to be very careful with that too.
Yeah.
Which is why Puff and I were pretty much was like trying to tell people, if you're thinking you're depressed, or even if you know you're depressed, it's best if you are the one that initiates any form of communication or contact on it, because it's safer for all parties that way.
Yeah.
But also for the group, if someone does come and do that, you still got to handle it with kid gloves,
Oh yeah.
because you can't just be like, oh yeah, you're depressed, go see someone, go do it now.
No.
You don't be like, yes, this is what you need to do, because in all honesty, it may not be. And just forcing or telling someone, yeah, this is what you need to do, especially who's depressed, you'll oftentimes get the reverse, the reverse action out of it, which is not going to help. So if someone does come to your group and just is like, yeah, I think something's wrong, listen, be supportive, make suggestions. Don't start laying out like, okay, this is what you need to do, da 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 da. Just be like, look, hey, that sucks. It's possible that someone else in the group has also dealt with that before, which would be great, because then you've got someone with at least some experience in it, help and deal with it. But just basically just be like, yeah, that sucks. Hey, you really should seek out some help. And if they're just like, I don't know where to go to, then you can be like, well, you can do this, you can do this, because someone might know someone, or someone that has, is going through this,
Can
or
I throw a caveat to that?
sure.
Say yes, we can do this. Yes, we can do that.
Ah, yes, yes, yeah, that would probably work better.
I would like to just real quick here, and that'll be my final say on this before we can like start the next podcast, since we're sort of finishing up because of my tech issues. I'll tell you how Brian Frankham saved my life.
Okay.
He didn't counsel me. He didn't confront me about it. He didn't. Truth be told, he really didn't even talk about it. You know what he did?
Hmm.
He found me at lunch, sitting alone, wearing all black, by myself, brooding.
As you were off to do.
Oh, this is bad.
Yeah.
Sat down across from me, in his hand and say, "Hey, I'm Brian. What's your name?" And I answered him because it's the South, we're polite. And he joined me for lunch every day for months. That's how he saved my life.
Yeah.
That was it. He just took the time to sit with me and just be a human being and listen to me and talk with me. And no matter how abrasive, no matter because I clearly made it clear to him that I had no intention of human contact. He wasn't ugly about it. He wasn't pushy. Sometimes we just sat there, but enough awkward silence where we started talking. Eventually, I opened up, and that's how this kid saved my life. And we were in sixth grade. So seventh grade. That's the first time in seventh grade. A seventh grader saved my life by just sitting with me at lunch because I was the one kid alone. And that is how you save somebody. That's what you don't have to be. You don't have to be their saving grace. Just being there for them is often enough, and that's what a gamer group can be. You're
Yeah.
not a counselor. You're not a psychiatrist. You're not a psychologist. You're a friend. Just be the best friend you can be. And often, not always, but often that is enough.
Yep. And I'll even add to that. Though I will not say that there was any one person or anything that saved my life, because I'm not trying to be smug about this either, but probably for the best. But it also it is a bit of a double edge. Suicide was pounded out of me very quickly, or very early on, I guess I should say. So that was something I know I could never consider, which, like I said, could kind of suck, because at least, I mean, as bad as this sounds, that at least for some people is an option to consider. So that is a way out. I don't agree with it. I don't think it's good. I don't think anyone should. But you know how, like, it's sometimes good to feel that you have options. And for me, that was never an option. So that kind of like almost compounded the issue a bit. I was like, well, I can't do that. So I'm gonna have to deal with this some way. Um, but the person that really started helping me getting on the road to getting better was actually you, motherfucker.
Oh, well, there you go.
Because you were the one that pulled me out of my shell at RMA, and you were the one that trained me enough to be aware enough to start realizing what was going on. I mean, I've suffered depression for a while, long while. But when I was at like AIW, um, I honestly couldn't really give it much energy, because AIW was on a quarter system, not a semester system. So I only had 11 weeks per quarter. So every 11 weeks, every like 4 to 5 weeks, I had an exam of some shape, way, or fashion, and projects that really I should have been having more than 11 weeks to deal with. I only had 11 weeks to deal with. So I would be, plus there was also all the social stuff that was going on, and stressors, and I mean there was good stuff too. I mean, there was a lot of gaming, there was a lot of fun stuff, made some great friends. Puff being one of them. But but I would deal with it, deal with it, deal with it, deal with it, and then about um, every once in a while I wouldn't be able to deal with it anymore, and I'd break down and I'd have a crying session for like a good hour, and that was kind of like the emotional purge. And afterwards, after I kind of recovered from that, I felt fine, and I felt I could deal with it again, and rinse, repeat. Um, it was a couple of years ago though that I started realizing that those crying sessions started happening much more frequently, and they were, there was constantly less and less time in between them, and that's when I actually realized I was like, okay, obviously I can't handle this on my own anymore. I need help. And I was actually thankful that my job had a 1-800 line that you could call, for a multitude of issues, not just this. I mean, you could get some like free legal advice, you could get free financial advising, you can get this, you can get that, but one of which was also, you know, so basically I called them up and I'm like, look, I know I suffer from depression. I'm getting to the point where I cannot deal with this on my own. I need help. And they spent a good 20 minutes or so on the phone with me. They're like, do you feel like you're wanting to hurt yourself? And I'm like, no, actually, I can't even consider that. So they're like, okay. I kind of threw them a bit for a loop. And they're like, do you feel like you're going to be hurting other people? I'm like, well, when I get pissed off at them, I kind of do, but not right at the moment. No. And then they set me up. They set me up with like 2 free sessions with a local counselor. And that counselor I'm actually still seeing. But that's what, and I started seeing the counselor for a while, but the counselor, though, has been helpful. I can't afford to see him as often as I would like. And also, I mean, again, he's a good guy, but sometimes he doesn't quite understand what my wife and I are, because my wife started, going with me to these sessions. And unfortunately, he doesn't quite fully understand sometimes what she and I are telling him. So, and that's when I finally went to my physician, my doctor, and was like, I need something to at least help kind of take the edge off, because I personally I'm a little iffy about medications, because I've seen where medications are great for people. I've also seen where medications have screwed people up. So I'm a little cautious on that myself. But even I was just like, okay, yeah, I need something. And I talked to my doctor about it, and she actually got me on something that has been helping. So, but yeah, it all started with you, dude.
Well, all I did was open a window and show you the sun.
Yeah, yeah, great metaphor for that, jerk. Because that was back in the day.
No! Literally!
Yeah, I know.
I
You showed me
literally
this,
opened up the window
and showed me the
and
sun.
said, that
And
is the sun.
I still hate the sun, but I hated it more then.
I'll never forget that. You were sitting at your computer all in there, and I was like, dude. I went over to the window, opened up. I said, that giant ball of light is the sun.
And I remember hissing at you too.
It did hiss.
Like, no.
Oh, God. Good times.
It was actually RMA that got me over my photosensitivity, because being forced to march in the June sun for hours on end, if you got issues with sunlight, you get over them pretty damn quick.
It was the best of times. It was the worst of times.
Yeah, pretty much. So, but yeah, bottom line, just try to be helpful. Just try to be there for your fellow gamers. I mean, if someone comes to you, great. And again, I still offer, if anyone feels like they need to reach out to someone, by all means, shoot it at us.
Yeah.
Because sometimes the whole anonymity helps. There's nothing saying you have to give me your actual name. You can call yourself John Doe. I don't give a shit. And actually, as Puff and I both said, if you want to speak to a particular one of us, shoot it to the Ropi Gamma email, gmropigamma@gmail.com. And I'd be, and it's like, this is for Howard, or this is for Puff, or this is for, Liz, or whatever. I will, I will forward it off. Even if it's just like, hey, I want to speak to someone, can you have them email me? So you don't even have to put anything like, particular in the email. Just, obviously we're asking no spam, but, but, but I mean, again, like I said, if you feel like something is wrong, something probably is. Because again, your instincts, and that's another thing I learned from from I kind of knew it already, but I definitely learned it from Howard. Your instincts sometimes know more and better at what's going on than your conscious mind does.
Yep.
So if you're hearing this and you're like, yeah, maybe I should do that, then you probably should. Now,
I agree.
if you're hearing that, be like, these guys are a bunch of jerks. Well, then you know what? Hey, we'd still love to hear from you about that too.
Actually, yes, we would.
Yep. We just need to hear from someone. So, uh, but yeah. So I'm glad you were able to get your,
Well, thank you.
your 2 cents in on that, dude.
And there was a psychologist on staff. Like, that's kind of funny. There is.
Yeah, actually, we do have a psychologist on staff.
Speaking of, actually, wait a minute. I got a segue here before we go into what are we doing in gaming. So you know, my dad we do construction work together, contractors,
right.
And we work together day in day out. And you know, he's my best friend. He's my mentor. I mean, I love my dad to death. Not that we don't have our differences, but me and my dad.
No, there have been some times you've contacted, I've talked to you about like, hey man, what's up? You're like, I want to kill him.
No, seriously, there have been a few, but no, we really do get along. We work really well together, and he's my boss, and so we go to Lowe's pretty much 3 times a day because it's the only shop in town because the awesome hardware store downtown closed its doors and screwed everybody in the community. That was a dig at Ricky, because he works there, and it was awesome while it lasted. But anyway, so we go there pretty much every single day, multiple times a day. And so we know the staff really well, very well in some cases. But what I found interesting, and this is the segue, interesting is this, is that more and more and more, as we walk in, various staff members will pull one or the other of us aside to ask questions. For example, one person pulled me aside and asked me about modifications to a legal document in sort of a court case. Another one pulled me aside and asked me the best product for shoe repair. My father got pulled aside and asked about retirement. I've been pulled aside and asked about home repair. I've been pulled aside and asked, I'm helping counsel a young man as far as what tests he needs to take to determine his profession. At our lunch break, no less. They joined us at our lunch break. So it's weird, speaking of being a psychologist, that I walk into Lowe's and people just stop me. I'm like, Mr. Brandon, I had a question about X. My dad and I have pretty much started a free counseling service at the local Lowe's for anything from shoe repair to legal, like free legal advice. It's the craziest thing. We were walking out the door, and one of the people came up to thank us for our suggestion because we helped them out. And walking out the door, and I'm like, I notice this is beginning to happen more often than not. And he's like, what? I'm like, how often have you been stopped in there and they ask free advice on everything from legal to money to shoe repair? And he goes, come to think of it, it's happening a lot. I'm like, I don't get it, dude. So yes.
You all do kind of have that air to you.
But we have not yet steered anyone wrong. Even with the legal advice.
Word of mouth, man. Word of mouth.
Apparently so. It's like, hey, if you got a problem, wait till those dudes come in, ask them. And
yep. I almost, having worked retail, I almost guarantee that's probably what's happening.
So anyway,
they're probably in the break room. It's like, man, I got this problem going on. It's like, really? Hey, what? Those 2 guys are always coming in. Why don't you ask them one of them? Like, what? Yeah, man, they helped me with this thing, man. It was great. Really? So, yeah. And like someone else in the break room would be like, yeah, I asked them about such and such, and they told me this. It was wonderful. Like, yeah, maybe I should. And then you all walk in, they're like, hey, can I ask you all about? I guarantee that's what's happening.
So there you go, dude. Like, so yes, you have a psychologist on staff, and it's so odd. They come up to me, and it's just, but hey, we're just trying to be helpful. It's just weird. We've started a free service. So apparently, if anyone really needs help, go to the Lowe's in Athens or in Madison and wait long enough. Anyway, so all right, I'm excited about what are we doing in gaming. So
all right, we'll go.
Awesome. So Shintar is a big ball of awesome.
Always.
Yeah. So we finished up your game, and the post game after that. As everyone knows, as I mentioned before, it's a global collaboration, and there was a situation where a couple months ago I was talking to a guy running a game out of the Core Humps. And he had a little loose end where one of the prelacy captains, who were evil guys, escaped and was headed north. And so for the last two game sessions, I think, 2 or 3, but at least 2 game sessions, 3 actually, because 3. The last 3 game sessions has been involved around this. I mean, there have been a lot of other things going on, but the subplot for the last three sessions has been involved the capture and like transportation of this high value target.
Didn't he
So
escape?
yeah, no, it gets funny. So he arrives in town, and they manage to finally track him down and catch him right as he's fleeing. And odd enough, the Rilderir, who is our yeah, beat stick. A Rilderir is our barbarian who has like a D4 and a ride. Like rode the guy down and like just smashed him, like broke his back. Didn't kill him, but like critically wounded him. So they took him back and they put him in prison. Actually, the Chapel of Light maintained him. All right, and then they did all these secret stuff, and they made secret plans to escape and try to avoid being observed, like leaving with him because they didn't want to get ambushed. They got out of the town. They were about 2 weeks east of the town. They got ambushed, and he got free. So this last game, this last Monday, last night was them trying to recover him after having lost him. And it was all kinds of awesome. I had two personal favorite scenes. My top favorite scene was in the woods right near the Howling River, where the prelacy captain had finally reached his allies, the guys who had orchestrated his breakup. And so you have the prelacy of Kaman, prelacy captain. Think of the worst version of the Inquisition. Think about the Inquisition from Warhammer. That's those guys.
Oh, jeez.
They kill all non-humans. They kill any magic. The only magic users that they use are adepts and one other variety of, but they're pretty much controlled by the church. And if you step out of line, you're killed, burned at the stake. And anyone who does not follow the doctrine of the church is also burned at the stake. So there's him. And at the time, he was being protected by a acolyte of flame from the Kalinar Dominion, as well as foot soldiers from the Kalinar, mercenaries from the Kalinar Dominion. There was one ranger, not Grayson's Grey Ranger. We're talking about just a woodsman there, a very, very skilled woodsman, who no one really knows where he came from, but presumably from the Southern Kingdoms, all paid for by Red Store, which actually means that three of the four major bad forces were all working together at that one point.
Jeez.
All paid for. Red Store paid for the Kalinar to help free the prelacy of Kaman. That's terrifying. That's like if North Korea, Russia, and China all just decided to, I don't know, bomb us. I mean, it's bad.
Axis of evil all over again.
Seriously. So but the scene was this. So the foot soldiers charged into the heroes. The heroes are fighting, and you've got Ricky's character, firing arrows at the acolyte. The flame acolyte is floating above the battle, wreathed in flames, and all around the forest is igniting into flames. He's burning so hot, the trees are immolating, like bursting into flames around him. So the entire forest around them is burning down. They've got this Thrachin, which is a sadistic goat man, teleporting in and out, slashing at them. You remember those guys.
Oh, yeah.
And, they're fighting the Kalinar, foot soldiers in the middle of this raging inferno. Meanwhile, you have the corrupted range, whoever that dude was, just absolutely just pummeling them with arrows, shooting them in the face. They, repeatedly shooting them in the face. And you've got this cackling, screaming madman on fire, floating above them, just raining down fire like meteors. It was pretty awesome. And the second favorite scene of that scene, they got away. They actually had to escape because the prelacy captain ran away because he was trying to get back to his allies. And so they actually disengaged. A player party disengaged from combat without killing every enemy on the field.
Wow.
I know, right? I was proud.
Yeah.
The second scene, which happened at the exact same time in a nearby town, you had the you remember Longtail, the rogue character?
Yep.
She was walking. It was pre-dawn hours. She was walking along the wharf, along the river, with all of the the mist rising, and she could hear the bells and the lamps beginning to light. When all of a sudden she was facing two men standing in the streets with axes. And she was about to, she was about to draw her swords when she heard, scuffle of boots from behind her, and she looked over her shoulder. And she saw two more men. They basically surrounded her, and so she slowly drew her swords and then they rushed into attack. And it was a scene of her fighting these four guys in the middle of this pre-dawn, in the mist, And she was doing pretty good until one of them got a couple lucky blows on her and drove her like basically to her knee. When all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they heard the thunder of hooves. And Alfred, you remember the young Alfred,
Yep.
the guy that you were analyzing? Alfred comes out of quite literally like nowhere, comes charging down the street and takes off one of their heads with a spear. And then the fight just went just awesome from there.
Nice.
So they did recapture. Real to Rear actually rode him down a second time and cracked his back a second time. Same guy. It was the same scene.
All over again.
And the dude, I personally felt bad for the Prelacy captain because like Real to Rear hits hard. So anyway, they recaptured him. My Wednesday night Star Wars game, we've only had one session since then, and it went relatively well. They managed to the single greatest plot point in the entire game. They managed to actually get it back into the hands of the rebels for like the third time.
Oh,
So
the cube.
the cube. They actually
Awesome.
delivered the cube.
Awesome.
So for the third time during the game, the rebels have the cube yet again. If they, it remains to be seen whether they can hold on to it. Is this stupid thing? Like everyone who touches the cube seems to die except the player characters. So anyway, and then my Rockets campaign's been on because my guy's been in medical school. Actually, I'm going to send an email tonight trying to get that started up. So that's kind of on hold. And I really haven't been doing the Thursday night games. I've just been so busy with Gen Con and other things coming up. So although we're going to plan to play Slipstream, which is another Savage World setting I'm interested in. So there's that.
Cool.
So that's my minute in gaming.
Sweet. Unfortunately, mine, because we unfortunately did not do the actual Epic game this last Saturday, for a couple of reasons. Sad face. Hopefully, we'll be able to. By the time this posts, hopefully we'll have gotten a full game in. On Sunday, I did have the Fate game that my friend Tim has been running, based off of the anime Fairy Tail, where I'm playing a card mage. We just finished a arc. It I personally thought that the arc he did could have gone on longer, but I also do kind of understand why he did give some reasons as to why it was very short. I mean, the arc only in essence lasted like a session and a half. I felt this thing could have been like almost a full campaign arc. Like this could have lasted like months of real time. But it didn't, and that's okay because part of this was just this was almost kind of whimsical. And originally this wasn't planned on originally planned on being a long extended game because I was taking a break from GMing with that group because I just wrapped up my Star Wars game with them, and another one of the players had a a an idea, but unfortunately she hasn't had much time to work on it. Tell Ricky we said hey.
Yes, sorry. Can you all hear me when I'm speaking softly?
Yeah, I was hearing you whisper to him. Yes.
Sorry.
So like I said, tell Ricky we said hey.
He says hey. What's up?
So, but yeah, so I mean we did do that, and that was I mean we did have fun, but the only other thing I've really done so far is to try to get ready for the Epic game this Saturday. I've been running with the players kind of one-on-one. Oh, pardon me. Yeah. To try to wrap up some loose ends before we get things really going again. And so far that has turned out really great. Because basically what has been happening is the characters are in one of the members of the parties, Ella, the sorceress. It's in her hometown, and things are like actually she was mentioning last week. Things are drastically different than what they were when she left, and the group is very suspicious that something's going on. Well, on the one hand, I had planned all this stuff for them to deal with, but Howard did bring up actually a very good point in the fact of this is still kind of distracting from the main point of the game, which is saving the rest of the world. So I discussed it with Howard and with Liz some, and I came up with the fact I was like, you know what, I just need to keep things moving. I need to get them out of this town. As much as I planned for for them to have stuff to deal with and whatnot, I made up the NPCs. So normally I'd feel really bad and I'd want to do it just because I put so much effort into it. I do feel that I've like, you know what, it's not working with the overall plot. This needs to move on. We can come back to this later. So I started working as to try to how exactly I was going to do that. And I figured, because Howard had also, his character had also made a comment about getting in touch with the my world's equivalent of Lucifer, the
Yeah, like that
mountain.
dude. That dude. Seriously, you wake up and the devil's sitting in your room. Not cool.
Yeah, Maltrum, the master of evil, the primary evil deity, lawful evil deity of my pantheon, decided to go and visit everyone in their dreams to basically be like, look, I've got just as much to lose as everyone else. Y'all are kind of spinning your wheels here. Y'all need to kind of get back on track. He went to everyone's dream except Howard's character because Howard being the paladin, Howard's god wasn't allowing that. So he actually had to show up in person at Howard's room. And actually, he and I just kind of role played that a few minutes right before doing the podcast.
Okay, everyone there, when he initially described before I realized who was in the room, all I could think was Slender Man. Like seriously, that's what went through my head. Because when he described all the things as I'm waking up, I'm like, oh crap, I'm getting a visit from Slender Man. This is how I die.
Yes, but it was far worse.
Yeah.
But you didn't die.
No, I didn't.
He was actually rather the gentleman. Be glad Nella didn't decide to pay a visit with him because she wanted to, but he nixed that idea. But she did make an appearance with both Tass and Hadassah. She tagged along, and Nella is my princess of shadows. She's the neutral evil kind of patron of darkness and thieves and trickery and whatnot. Um, so yeah, be glad she didn't try to make an appearance, in your room as well, because
I think one Dark God a day is like my limit.
yeah. So, but running with Puff and Liz, and then running with I did Matt and Allison last night, and I did you tonight, and I'm gonna do Mary tomorrow before our ALA. Um, but that's been really fun. That's actually been because I've been told, like, when I do Star Wars, I've been told I do the Emperor really 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 well. So I apparently have issues with the like marauding orcish horde type of evil. I apparently do the very in the shadows dark sinister evil very well, and that I'm a little curious about.
Okay, let's go back, harken back to the days of Arme when we did
Uh oh.
the three man, well, two men and one woman play. Well, I guess one man and two women play with you, me, and Monica, where you
Oh,
played the devil.
I played this. What he's talking about is it was the last for the drama group. It was the last play that we did our senior year, and there were only three of us in the drama group because some of the other members of the drama group who were also in our gaming group somehow convinced the RMA higher ups to allow a role playing activity. And of course I wanted to, but I actually liked doing drama, and I also saw that the numbers were dwindling fast. So I
Yeah.
wasn't gonna let drama. I wasn't gonna let the drama group die. So it turned out to be, by the end, when the dust settled, it was me, Howard, and Monica. And so the drama instructor went and found a play that only had three people, and it was Mark Twain's The Diary of Adam and Eve, and there are only three roles. There's Adam, there's Eve, and there's the serpent. And I looked at her dead in the eye, and I was like, I do not want the lead. I do not want to be Adam. And she kind of looked at me like, and I was like, because I have nailed the lead in every other play that we've done since I started last year. I was like, I do not want the lead this time. She was like, oh, okay. Which, of course, meant I wasn't playing Adam, which means I had to play the serpent.
let me say, I remember this conversation because I was standing there, and you're like, I don't want to play the lead. She's like, okay, well, Howard, and I was like, between the two of us, he makes a better Satan anyway.
I actually forgot that part.
Yes, I did. I totally vouch for your ability to play a villain. That's the whole point. You play evil well, not the marauding horde. You play like evil well, which is why that play went really well. I mean, the play went well. The
Yeah.
only problem I had with that particular play was the fact is that Monica is like she sight read the thing. She's like, all right, I got it memorized. The two of us are like, well, crap.
Yeah, I only had like a page of lines. I only had like 5 or 6 lines. It took me forever to nail them. And of course, Howard had this whole, like the whole beginning of it is practically a monologue of his.
Oh my god! And she totally just like sight read. Is like, yep, I got it memorized. I'm like, you.
Well, okay, she was the brainchild.
I know, but it was so freaking annoying because then the teacher's like, "What about? Why is it taking you guys so long to memorize?" I'm like, "We're not fucking geniuses."
I kid you not. She was a freshman my junior year. She was a junior my senior year. She skipped her sophomore year, and that was not the first grade she skipped.
Yeah, she actually. I can't.
I know she didn't. I don't think she graduated valedictorian, but I think she was close of her class.
Oh my god, it was hilarious. Anyway.
This is also the girl that came to us like almost in tears when she got her grades one semester.
Oh, yes.
and of course she was like, my parents are gonna kill me. My grades suck. My parents. And of course Howard and I are like, oh shit, something must really be wrong. And we're like, okay, Monica, what happened? And she's like, I dropped from a 4.3 to a 4.2. And of course I just turned around. I was like, fuck it. And Howard was just like, really? And she was like, this is terrible. And we're just like, I turned around, I looked at her, I was like, Monica, I would kill for a 4.0, which is, what
the
most
highest
schools,
statistically you can get.
The highest in most grades. The only reason why we went to 4.5 is because of some of the advanced classes. And of course, I was like, I would kill for that kind of a grade to begin with. And she was like all broken up about it, and that's pretty much when she got dubbed the brainchild.
Oh my god, I remember that. I was like, are you kidding me? Yeah.
So, but yeah, I remember the drama teacher looking at me, and I was just like, I don't want the lead. Fuck it, I don't want it. And she was just like, okay, because there was only like 2 times that I wasn't the lead, and those were the 2 times because there wasn't a lead to have. And that was when we did like a musical montage of things. We did like a montage of various songs, and I mean I sang I know I did like music of the night.
Good job.
Thank you. That's also when you and I did Who's on First,
which personally was the greatest performance I have ever had. I have never. It's the only time I've ever seen my father lying in the aisles of a church laughing.
And then a little while later we did Shakespeare's Fools. So she picked a bunch of various funny scenes from Shakespeare's plays. So I didn't, although I was Romeo in one of the scenes from that, but I didn't have the most of the lines from that one. That was actually Asher had that because he was playing Mercutio.
Asher.
And then you and I played 2 guys in I think was it Much to Do About Nothing?
Yep.
We were the 2 that got arrested. So, and of course we have very few lines. But that was it. Like those 2 things were the only times I wasn't the lead. And I mean, I kind of know why I was the lead is because I had prior acting experience. I'd been in 2. I mean, they were local productions, but they were full productions of plays before coming to RMA. So and I think I was kind of her favorite. But man, we've really segued.
Yeah, shall we get back to gaming?
Sure. Instead of going on about our acting lives. Well, it's an official episode. We've gone on a segue from hell.
Actually, we did. It was from hell. As we started it.
Yep, you started it with the Diary of Adam and Eve. So. So anyway. So yeah. Honestly though, I didn't really have any other subject.
What? I thought you had... I thought you totally
I was gonna cover what Puff was going to originally cover last week, but I was gonna have her do it, and she couldn't make it tonight.
so we're not going to talk about that.
I don't even remember what it was.
Are you kidding me?
Nope.
Well, if you give me 2 seconds, I actually have something.
All right, sweet, go for it.
If I can find it. I got to send you the link. I don't know if you've seen it. My wife actually brought this to my attention. Non-gamer. There is a Facebook post out. It's not. I mean, it's being done viral via Facebook. Have you seen the where some group took the Guardians of the Galaxy characters and analyzed them as far as D&D classes?
No, I've seen other people. I've seen this done with like other, movies or stories or whatnot, but not Guardians of the Galaxy specifically.
Yeah, it's been going around. Let's see. And the base of the question is, do you agree? Let me see if I can find it real quick.
Okay, sure.
Okay. Boom, 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 boom. Okay. If it doesn't show up here, I am going to go ahead and I'm still because, like I said, my wife is the one that brought it to my attention. There it is. All right, clever move games. What D&D class is your favorite Guardians of the Galaxy? And let me send you a link so you can see the same thing.
Okay.
And over here, it's going to be in the chat. So, bam. And when you got it.
Give me a sec. Doop-a-doo. Loading, loading, loading.
Chris, you're going to have to help me with some of this because I actually don't know what some of I don't know what some of these like things are.
Okay.
I am not the D&D guru of this group.
Yep, that's fine. No. Wait. Okay. So, all right. So going down the list, we've got.
All right, let's start off at the top. So we've got.
That sounded an awful lot like the introductory to D&D campaigns. What would be the Guardians of the Galaxy like D&D? Oh, they're actually doing 5th edition specifically.
There you
Okay.
go. All right, so Peter Quill, Star-Lord, class Rogue, which I don't think anyone here would disagree with. Arcane Trickster. I guess it's because of his supposedly the element gun, maybe?
Well, let's see. Guardians of the Galaxy shows Peter Quill as versatile, but not the party member to lead a fight. He takes out plenty of foes, but usually only in the aid of gadgets. And he's a lot better than getting away from a fight than finishing one.
It's true.
Arcane Tricks, you know, uh, fuck it. It's going to be over 2 weeks since the movies get out, so there's going to be spoilers in here. Spoiler warning, considering I just saw the movie today. Arcane Trickster, it might be because of his gadgets, and although taking from 3.5 and Pathfinder, I could have found a better specialization than that. But it might be because of his guns. It might also be because of the kind of his heritage they alluded to at the end of the movie. Because he was able to handle the Infinity Stone better, or at least a little longer.
Yeah.
Definitely Rogue. I'm not entirely sure about Arcane Trickster with that one though. I don't know.
Well, yeah, because his father was actually, well, at least in the comics, was Spartoy. All right.
Yeah, his father was an alien in the comics.
All right, so let's go on to, if you're good with Rocket.
Yep. Rocket and Groot. Rocket, class, wizard, specialization, evocation. Rocket seems. Huh?
What is the evocation class?
Well, evocation is not a class. Evocation is a school of magic.
I know it's school of magic, but what is evocation?
Evocation is what actually Puff kind of specializes in. That is the combative boom magic.
Combative boom magic.
Okay. Yeah, basically, evocation is when you're creating energies of pulling or creating energies of forces to. It's pretty much where most of your attack spells come from.
So why would they say that he would be evocation?
Well, Rocket seems to know how to use every machinery he encounters. He creates some of his own. This sounds like a wizard that focuses on item creation and the items that Rocket creates tend to blow things up. I think that actually works rather well. Um,
Really?
yeah, honestly though, I've seen again not that they did with fifth edition, and I'm not as familiar with fifth edition as I am the earlier editions. In the earlier editions, there are actually like alchemists and like gadgeteers that I think would have worked better. But taking kind of from the basics, yeah, I think Wizard with like a focus in item creation and him kind of specializing in evocation works for Rocket.
Okay.
I think it does. Let's
This
see.
is one of those things where, like, it's your knowledge that kind of, because my wife actually, again, I can't stress this enough. My beautiful wife, who is in no way a gamer or even really, I mean, she cares about it as much as that I do, but like, she's not a gamer. She's the one who brought this. So actually, my wife gave us today's topic, and I'm going to tell her that when she gets home, and she's going to be what? But yeah, she was reading through this. She was going, oh, okay, maybe. I
So
guess there's no. I guess so. Item crafting. Well, item crafting are feats. You don't actually have to have a school of magic for it. So I guess it's item
yeah.
crafting. With,
So imagine pretty much he taking from like a Pathfinder 3.5 perspective. He's a wizard specializing in the evocation school, and he pretty much creates a lot of scrolls or wands that have a lot of boom magic in them that he can then unload with extreme prejudice.
okay, I kind of like the way you describe it. The way you describe it kind of sucks.
So,
With extreme prejudice. I guess that's why I love Rocket so much, being an artillerist myself,
yeah, I can definitely see that.
and the whole
And,
bomb thing.
and, and actually, in the comics, Rocket was like a mechanical and tactical genius.
Yeah, he was.
So I thought they played that up very well in the movie. That was cool. So okay, Groot, class Druid, duh.
Is that because he's a giant living tree?
Yeah, he's pretty much a tree. I mean, he pretty much is.
Or a nereid?
Yeah,
Or naiad, or whatever the hell you call it. Although they were all male or female, right?
Dryad. You're thinking Dryad.
Dryad. Dryad.
You're trying to mix nymph and Dryad, two different things. And yes, they're pretty much always female. Um, Specialization Circle of the Moon. I actually have no clue what the hell that means. That's obviously something in fifth edition that I haven't looked at yet. Um, but while Groot doesn't turn into a beast, he often transforms his body to fit his tasks. He also does a bit of healing and can't get much closer to nature than being a tree. Yeah, that pretty much works. So, all right, moving down. Gamora. Gamora, class fighter. Yeah, I definitely believe it. Specialization champion. I'm not entirely familiar on the champion either. I think that's something that's from earlier editions, but it's one I've never really looked at. Gamora kicks a lot of behind in the movie. She also makes at least one physiological defying leap and seems to be somewhat unaware of how to socialize. That sounds like a fighter. Yeah, pretty much.
Somewhat.
I actually would have done it a bit more because although she uses a lot of weapons, she also does a lot of hand-to-hand combat.
So you might have done like a monk class?
Not necessarily a monk, because one of the things I liked about the fighter in third edition and 3.5 and in Pathfinder, if you pick the right feats, you can specialize a fighter very easily. And a pugilist is actually like a specific specialization build you can do in um in Pathfinder. So I would have picked a fighter, but with like a specialization focusing on a lot of hand-to-hand combat. Granted, she wouldn't have gotten necessarily as many of the kind of key special abilities that monks get, but still, you outfit a fighter properly, and even with hand-to-hand, they can still kick a lot of ass.
Fair enough.
So, Drax, class barbarian. Oh yeah. Specialization, the path of the berserker. Oh yeah. Brash, single-minded, and terrifying to everything within line of sight. Drax perfectly fits the space barbarian archetype. his combat style also tends towards berserking. I would definitely agree with that pretty much wholeheartedly.
Yeah, he was the easy one.
Yeah, he was. Although the character, because I actually didn't know much about Drax before watching the movie. I didn't know much about Guardians of the Galaxy until I looked him up a bit before seeing the movie. But Drax, Liz and I both got pleasantly surprised about Drax's character and the fact that he is very learned. He's just very pissed, which actually goes a little bit against how the barbarian class kind of goes. But still, overall, if I had to pick him a class, yeah, barbarian would definitely do it.
Yeah, well, yeah.
So
Sometimes you gotta, sometimes you just gotta go with it, right?
yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Well, so yeah, so sometimes you just got to pick what fits. It may not fit perfectly, but you got to pick what fits best.
And something that a lot of people mistake is the difference between intelligence and being literal. And that was kind of his thing. It was like it wasn't that it was dumb necessarily, although
Yeah.
they kind of portrayed it in that way. He just took everything very literally.
Well, actually, they made the comment the fact that his race was very literate to the point to where they just didn't understand metaphors because they were so learned that they didn't metaphors kind of went over their head and
No, they would catch them.
yeah, it's just like my reflexes are good enough I would catch it if anything went over my head. And
Use that example.
Oh my god.
I loved it. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, very little spoilers here. But it's good. Hey, listen. Everyone has recently seen the movie. If you haven't recently seen the movie, then you are quite literally in the minority. Because good God Almighty, everyone has seen the freaking movie.
Yeah. Actually, it's blown a couple of records out of the water for its first weekend.
And it's worth every penny.
Oh yes.
So of these, how many of them would you agree with? How many of them would you disagree with?
Drax definitely agree with. Gamora agree with for the most part. Like I said, I'm not entirely familiar enough with the specialization to be able to give a 100% on that. Rocket, yeah, pretty definite. Groot, like I said, as definite as I can get. Again, I have no clue what the Circle of the Moon is for the specialization.
Hey, at least you admit it.
Yeah, Star-Lord is the only one I'm kind of iffy about because, like I said, Rogue, yes. Arcane Trickster, I'm not entirely sure about that. Honestly, I'm not entirely sure about that. Actually, Gamora, considering in the movie, in the story, she's an assassin. She actually probably could have been specialization assassin because fighters can be assassins too. It tends best towards rogues, but fighters can be them too. But yeah, Star-Lord, yeah, Arcane Trickster, I'm not entirely sure why they're going that route. But again, that might be something in 5th edition I'm not aware of.
Yeah, and I'm not very aware of 5th edition anyway. So.
Yeah, I mean, I've downloaded the base rules from the Wizards website, which I remember, I think it was last week or so that I went off on the fact that I love the fact that Wizards has done that. Yeah, it was last week because it was your talking point about the mainstream versus indie. Unfortunately, I haven't had the time to really go to actually start looking into it, and I might actually do that. I might try to dedicate some time here soon to do that. So,
and you can actually come back and give us a kind of a.
I remember you and I talking about at one point actually starting to try to do game reviews again on Ropai, and specifically, actually like doing one session where we go over the system and build characters, and the second session is like we actually run an adventure and then kind of do a critique. And I actually wouldn't mind to. I wouldn't mind starting with 5th edition. I've played it, so I know there's enough similarities with with 3.5 and the Pathfinder-esque stuff that I could probably pick it up pretty quick and be able to run something if you want.
Okay. I mean, I'm open-minded.
Okay.
I'm not a huge fan of the thing, but I want to be open-minded. So yeah, if we want to do that, that would be the first one.
Again, like we were talking last week, at least give it a shot.
Yeah, I mean, I'm willing to try it once.
Because and like I said, from what I've played of 5th edition, I like where they're going with it. I like what they've done with it.
Cool.
Granted that opinion might change once I get more in, when I get my hands dirty with it. But but from what I have seen, I think Wizards definitely learned from their mistakes with fourth edition. They did
Well,
keep some rules and some aspects of fourth edition, which is fine because they were the ones that I thought were either good choices or worked. So
can I just say something right here as like a plug? Not to
sure.
get into politics because this is not a political blog, but um, free market, guys. This is the free market at work. You have a company which has a more or less monopoly on not on gaming, but on the flagship system, which I've always said D&D pretty much became the flagship system after Gygax and
Well,
Nine Yards.
yeah.
And then and they did what most major corporations do. They drifted away from their client base. The larger they got, the clients went because when you're a startup company, your customers are your life,
Yeah.
and you're
Well,
doing
you also have to remember it was TSR got bought by Wizards, then got bought by Hasbro. So
yes. But and Hasbro sees this all, and that's the point is as a company grows, their clients go from being or their customers go from being their life's blood to just digits on a page.
yep,
It gets boiled down to numbers, and that's what happened with D&D.
yep.
And D and
Honestly,
D,
in my opinion, that's what's happened to Magic too, which is one of the reasons why I'd like to
yeah.
pick that back up again.
Well, and that's the thing. In D&D, they knew that they were going to last forever, like the Roman Empire, and they knew that no one could challenge their authority on the battlefield, and so they just no longer cared. And then here came, David to their Goliath, and then Pathfinder Paizo
Yep.
just blew them out of the water by listening, because Paizo came from them. The guys that developed Paizo, I mean, not everyone, but a large portion of them came from Dungeons and Dragons, and they went 3.5, and I remember the heady days of 3.5. We heard 4.0 was coming out, and everyone was like, "Woohoo!" And
No,
then,
I wasn't.
well, I know a lot of people who are excited about it, and then
And,
people
well,
started,
and I'll tell you why.
why?
Because Saga Edition came out first. And as soon as I looked at Saga Edition, I was like, literally, and you could ask Liz and you could ask Ray, who was the game store owner when I bought the Saga Edition core book. I
Yeah,
took one look at it and I was like, oh dear God, I hope this is not where they're taking D&D. And someone was like, oh no, no, it's not, or either that or like, I hope so because I think this is great. And I'm like, I don't. And sure enough, there a pamphlet came out later that was like, magic and lightsabers. What's the similarity? And they actually specifically said that a lot of the rules changes they did in fourth edition, Saga edition was the test bed for.
yeah.
And
Well,
as soon as I found that out, I was like, damn it.
well, and that's
So,
the thing.
but
But
anyway,
the thing is that Paizo was a startup, and it looked at what needed to be done, and it listened to the fans, and it created a product that the fans would like. It was D&D the way it should have been done.
yep.
Now D&D is the problem is they've lost. The only reason D&D has changed their tune is free market. Paizo cut such a huge chunk out of their market share that
Well, and unfortunately, D&D did it to their fan bases too,
yeah,
because so many people didn't like fourth edition, and then Paizo just kind of swooped in and scooped them up because
yeah,
they're like screw this, we're sticking with 3.5, and Paizo's like here's 3.75, it's a lot better. They're like woohoo.
it's business, but this is free market. This
Yep.
is open free market in actual practice in gaming. And I know capitalism gets a bad rap, but this is capitalism at work, folks.
Yep.
To
For the
better
good.
your lives.
For the good.
So, all right. Well, I mean, that's it. And I wish Jen were here right now because I would actually get her reaction. I will next podcast remember, and I will try to remember to tell you exactly what her reaction is when she finds out that she provided our topic for the day.
I will definitely try to. This is actually making me think of the one thing I remember in the back of one of my issues of Knights of the Dinner Table. It was an analysis as to why Lord of the Rings would have failed as an RPG group,
Yes.
like during an RPG tournament. Um, and I remember like one of the things was the fact that the wizard was the best fighter in the group.
Yes.
You had three freaking hobbit, three or four, it was four hobbit thieves in the group. The NPC got the win condition.
Yes.
There were a couple of others, and I wish I could find it. I actually went through like every one of my Knights of the Dinner Tables looking for it. I could not find it. I even like contacted the company the company that does it. And I was like, I was looking for this one thing, and they were like, "Oh my god, yeah, no, dude." They're like, "We're sorry, we couldn't help you any further, but yeah, no, we it's like we got nothing for you." And I was like, "Damn it!" So, but yeah, I mean that was a pretty cool article.
Awesome. Well, I'm just she happened to mention it earlier today, and so it came up in chat. So,
Yep.
all right, I think that's it for us.
Yeah, pretty much. So,
Uh, Thank you, Ricky. Your commentary was well
that
thought out.
was Ricky.
Ridiculous. That was Ricky.
Figures.
He was trying to fill in the awkward silence with his.
All right. Well, if our listeners have any questions, comments, concerns, what the fucks, or anything along those lines, they can be more than happy to hear from them, and they can contact us either via Twitter, on the blog, on the YouTube channel, or email. And again, we want to hear from y'all, even if it's you all suck, or if it's just you all are great. Whatever, we want to hear from you guys. So I mean, especially if you've got like hey, I'd like to see you all cover this. What do you think about that? Da 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 da. So
Hey,
but,
I really wish we could get Carlos. Right? What's his last name? Or our Spanish listener.
oh, Jorge Vallejo.
Jorge Vallejo. I seriously want to get him on as a guest.
I would be more than happy to have Jorge.
He represents
Although
the international community.
I think he's in a time zone even further out than the English people we've had over there in Britain. So it would be basically a very good juggling act, but I'd be more than happy to.
Hey, Jorge, if you're listening to this, if you're still listening to the cast and you're interested in being a guest on the podcast, let us know. I will try to work my schedule around because we'd love to have you on.
I'd be more than happy, man. Also, the fact that I know Jorge wanted us to try to get back to actually having the MP3s available, and I am working on that. I am sorry, I am working on that. It is slow goings, but I am working on that.
No, he is sorry that he has not completed it, but he is working on it. He is not sorry he is working on it.
Yeah, no. I'm not sorry I'm working on it. I do want to get this done. So, anyway. All right. Well, that being said, thank you all for joining us this week. Hopefully you will join us
After Gen Con?
Yeah, I was actually about to say, next week, unfortunately, is Gen Con.
No, next week is Gen Con. Unfortunately, we will probably not be having a podcast. I'm getting better at this.
Shut up, you.
I'm like your protocol droid.
Jerk! You're like a goddamn AK-47. You're not calling me a meatbag. Don't start.
Man, great idea. Next episode, the entire one, I'm just going to call him a meatbag.
Oh, thanks. Well, actually, I would love to try to do an episode at Gen Con. I don't think it's gonna happen, but we could definitely do an episode once we get back, right?
Yes.
Because you'll be leaving Monday, so you'll be back by Tuesday.
I will be back by Tuesday unless I break down on the way.
So, and I will definitely be back by Tuesday, because Tuesday's when we usually record.
Yes.
To spoil that for everyone. So yeah, we may not be able. We may be able to do something at Gen Con, which may be just a flat out, hey, we're here at Gen Con, yay! All right, bye. But we could definitely do an overview of Gen Con the next week. So yeah, there might not be a podcast next week, but there can very definitely be one the week after.
Yep.
So
plan.
There we go. So all right. So thank you, of course, Howard, for the input and ideas and whatnot, for being the co-host. So, and of course, I have been your GM Byron.
I have been your co-host Howard.
And just remember the motto of Ropai Gamma is roll
Roll
high,
hard,
play
play
well,
well,
die
die
hard.
hard.